Kia ora everyone, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be talking about my interview experience applying to a job at NZX, which is the New Zealand Stock Exchange, I believe, if you didn't already know. So yeah, I just applied to a customer service admin role, and yeah, I think I found it on Next Step, which is like a graduate website, but it wasn't a graduate program. Like, they have a separate graduate program I also applied for and I didn't get in. Yeah, this is just a kind of standalone full-time role. So I applied on the 11th of November, and then about a week later I had my first initial interview. And then a week after that, I had my second interview, and then the day after my second interview, I got a call saying that I unfortunately was not successful my first interview. So basically, this was just a completely behavioral interview, structured it based on their values. So the first one was integrity, and so basically you had to give an example of a time where, you know, maybe you were asked to do something that wasn't very good or you didn't agree with, and how did you deal with it. So I talked about being at Rainbow's End and how, like, some of the time people would serve food that maybe wasn't the most fresh or wasn't the best quality, but I would always try and you know, for example, if it came to fries, I would always do a new batch, or just make sure that customers were getting the best quality, because at the end of the day, like, I know how it feels to get crap food and it's just not a nice feeling. And yeah, that seemed to be a pretty good answer. The second one was about resilience, and like, you had to give an example of how you overcame a challenge. So I talked about being at university when I did a programming class and I just completely failed the first couple assessments, but you know, I didn't give up and I managed to like get a B in the end and do quite well. The third one was about creativity, so name a time where you know, gave a suggestion and you improved like a process within a work, I guess, context. And I talked about being at uni and how I suggested that the business faculty like redo this process in terms of like students and how they get punished. The last one was about delivery and how basically you went above and beyond for a customer. So honestly, I didn't really have any examples, but I kind of just made one up on the spot. So I just talked about being a tutor and how I gave someone extra help like outside of the hours and how it really helped them, and they went from like almost failing to getting an A, which I've never actually done, but they seem to like it, so it works. I don't recommend lying in your interviews, but sometimes, you know, you gotta bend the truth a little bit. And yeah, that was basically the whole interview. It was pretty short. It was about 25 minutes long. And then after that, I just had to ask them some questions. So I just talked about like, what's your favorite part of the role? Yada, 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 you know, just the basic kind of questions that everyone loves to hear. And then yeah, after that initial interview, honestly, I did feel like I did a pretty good job. All my examples, I feel like, were quite in depth and they seemed to be pretty happy with the answers. And then yeah, a couple days later, I got a call from the recruiter that said, you know, the feedback was good and I was scheduled in for a second interview. And the second interview was primarily based on fit. So I think it was just how well, you know, you're going to fit with the team. So there was two kind of manager people that I would have been working with. The second interview was again on Microsoft Teams and it was about 20 minutes long. And honestly, like, initially when I got in, the vibe just wasn't it. Like, people, they seem to be a bit like cold, I want to say, and just like quite rigid. And I'm someone that tends to like match the energy of other people. So if other people aren't really giving me much, then I'm not going to give much back, if that makes sense. But anyways, so the first question was just tell me about yourself and talk about your past jobs and experiences. And then they wanted to know like an example of the best team that I had worked in. They asked me about like working online and how I do with that, and I basically just said, oh, you know, I'm basically studied my whole degree online, so I'm pretty used to it at this point. And a couple tough questions were like, how would your friends and colleagues describe you? Why you chose NZX? Why this role in particular? What are your future career goals? And also like, how you like to learn, and how you like to be managed. And then lastly, they just asked if I had anything for them. So I asked about like investing, and I asked about the working conditions and like the hours and stuff like that. And yeah, overall, I felt like this interview wasn't as good as the first one, but I still had pretty high hopes, especially because at the end they were like, do you have any references, you know, so we can like contact you for the next steps. So I had pretty high hopes at this point, but unfortunately, like I said before, the next day, I got a call to say that I was not successful. And I think the main feedback that I got was that they didn't feel like it was a right role for me, since I was looking for more IT related roles, and to be honest, it's probably fair enough. I feel like this role, I mean, it would have been fine, but I guess it's not particularly related to what I'm studying. Like, it's kind of an entry level role. Like, you don't need a degree to work in customer service or do admin. So I probably am like a tad overqualified, if anything. But at the same time, I do want to say, like, I feel like they kind of wasted not only my time but also their time as well doing 2 interviews, because that's something that you can kind of gauge in the first interview. Like, you should be asking people like why they want this role and like what they're looking for in a job, because otherwise, like, what's the point of having a second interview? You're just gonna reject the person because like you think they're overqualified, you know what I mean? But yeah, anyways, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found it a little bit interesting or helpful, and I'll see you in my next one. Ciao.